Welcome to the New Dentist Study Club podcast. My name is Dr. Sanj Mohanta. We're going to learn about clinical management, practice management, and the emotional management of dentistry. Let's learn how to be happier in dentistry. Let's go. Thank you to our sponsors, Altum Dental Lab Group and RDT Dental Lab in Toronto.
The challenge that I'm going to bring up is one that is at the core of human existence.
How about the future of dentistry? How do you think that's going to affect new dentists?
We're not in the dentistry profession serving people. We're in the people business providing dentistry.
Peter, what is the biggest challenge new dentists have in being successful as an associate?
I can't tell you how many dentists have told themselves the necessary lie. They said, we're too busy being busy.
Hello, my friends. Thank you so much for joining us again on the podcast. We have a very special guest today, my friend Peter Barry, who is a transformational trainer and practice success coach. And he is here to transform us. Welcome, Peter.
Thank you, Sanj. I'm so happy to be with you today. This is exciting.
I know, we get to talk about this in person, about
Yes.
transforming our lives, about having successful, fulfilling careers. And I'd like to hear about your new playbook on thriving in dentistry. But first, tell us about yourself.
Well, so first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm so inspired by you, and you have to be good at receiving. Okay? I'm so inspired by you and the way you are with people. It's amazing, like over the last couple of years, I've been watching you and the things you do online and so on. And then, of recently we met, and the conversations we've had have been so inspiring and soulful to me. You can tell that you love dentistry and that you love people, but you can tell that that everything you do is with a deep sense of soulful heart, right?
Oh.
And that's really inspiring to me because you're a connector of people.
Oh, thank you so much, Peter.
Yeah.
And thank you for being my soul friend.
Yay, awesome.
So tell me about yourself and how you became a transformational coach.
Okay, so I don't know if I remember telling you or not, I spent 12 years in the armed forces. While I was in the armed forces, I studied leadership and management. I studied group dynamics. I studied project planning and project implementation. And basically, I became an expert at creating movements through people with groups, bringing people together and synergizing them. I then, because I love sports, and sports is all about team, right, and connection, I then became a national coach and trainer for all sports sciences. So I studied things like skill analysis, skill development, the theory and methodology of training principles, making a yearly training plan. And I took all that, and around 1994, I'm 59 years old today, just so everybody knows, right?
Today's your birthday?
No, not today, it's July 12th. When's yours?
March 28th.
All right. Yeah, and so back in 1994, I was in an airport, right, traveling for a course, and I met a dental consultant. I think at the time she was with Fortune Management, and I remember her because she was talking on a big clunker of a cell phone. And so I kind of moved over and I was looking at that big brick she was talking to, and I heard her talking about, get this, about dentistry and leadership and business. Wow. And I thought to myself, what in the world does leadership and business have to do with the world of dentistry? And so I asked her that, and I asked her if I could make a phone call on her phone, right? To phone a friend. Hey, I'm on a cell phone. And so she looked at me and she says, oh, are you kidding me? She says, she said that in dentistry, we should not focus on teeth, we should focus on people. She said to me, dentistry is much bigger than people. And she told me a saying at the time about Starbucks. She said that Starbucks is not in the coffee business serving people. They're in the people business providing coffee. Wow. And I think it's the same thing for dentistry. We're not in the dentistry profession serving people. We're in the people business providing dentistry, which means that without people we have nothing, but with people we have something much bigger than dentistry. And when she shared that with me, it touched my heart. And I decided at the time, I said, you know what? I want to create a coaching company in dentistry. I want to bring my knowledge, my experience into that world. And I want to bring true coaching to dentistry, because coaching is very different from consulting. Consulting in a way is if you learn something and you know it well enough, you can give people expert advice. But true coaching is providing people with expert advice, but guiding them in self-discovery so that they can come to desired conclusions in their own mind, so they can set their own goals, and so that they can actually come up with solutions strategically under the guidance of a coach. That's more kind of what I do. And so at that point, I just decided, you know what? I'm getting out of the armed forces, right?
Wow.
I'm gonna put coaching, sports coaching on the sideline, and I need to learn about dentistry. So I became a dental hygienist, right? I became a restorative hygienist, and I very quickly started working in different offices, and very quickly implementing really good hygiene programs, and then systems for the front evolved from there, and then just systems for change and running a better practice environment where everyone was happier. And so for the last, I think I incorporated this company in 2001. And since then, I've been working formally, specifically as a practice success coach, and helping offices from across North America to set goals and move in the direction of those outcomes in a happy way with their business family.
Wow, that is a phenomenal story. That
Yeah.
chance encounter with the lady at the airport
Yeah.
just changed your trajectory in
Absolutely.
your career. And thank goodness for us, because now we have you to teach us about how to have thriving, fulfilling careers.
Well, thank you for that compliment. I appreciate it. Yeah.
Now, how about the future of dentistry? How do you think that's going to affect new dentists?
Okay, so this is a really deep topic. Let's go into it in the surface. I read a book a few years ago that's really interesting. It's called The Great Crossover. And in The Great Crossover, it describes 4 phases in our society that fundamentally accelerated the rate of change in the way we evolve. The first phase was the spoken language, right? When humans or society, or when humans began to speak, we were able to organize ourselves into communities, into tribes, into groups, right? The second phase was the written language. When we began to write notes on rocks, in pyramids and whatever, man began to be able to communicate with others at a distance, right? And then I think in the early days when paper was being created, early forms of paper, we're able to communicate over greater distances and form societies and communities, right? The third great crossover, and this one's really important, is the published language, right? The published language is where we began to write things in books, because up until that point, if you were going to learn anything new, you learned it from let's say you wanted to be the village doctor. You would learn everything you need to know from the previous village doctor, right? And it was like the tribal elders, the good old boys, that tell you how things are, right? And then as long as you follow what they told you, you'll do fine.
Yeah.
But that worked until man began, or humans began publishing books. Because once books came in, pretty soon you were able to know more than your predecessors that were teaching you.
Yeah.
And the rate of change started to accelerate. Now, jump forward, right, to 1995 or the mid-90s. This is where the microchip kicked in. And when the microchip showed up, as we know, it flipped, and the internet, it flipped everything we know in the way we did things completely upside down. Old or previous ways of doing things were replaced with new and better ways of doing things, where I won't always say that people thought they were better at the time, but they became mainstream, and they help us to do more and to be more agile and to get more done. So now today you could run a small business from the basement of your home, basically, and be like a large corporation. So technology today has basically fundamentally changed the face of the way dentistry is practiced, the way it's served to our customers, and the way it's experienced by society. We've got bigger, we've got more early diagnostic tools, we've got more clinical and theoretical knowledge, we've got new treatment modalities and innovations, we've got AI coming in that's really accelerating the whole thing, and we've got something that people aren't talking about as much, which is called quantum computing. So quantum computing at a research level is fundamentally accelerating the rate at which new technologies and new innovations enter the marketplace. So the new dentists, or the dentists that are going to thrive in the future, are the ones that are able to develop skills that are needed to embrace all this new change and opportunity.
So what advice do you have for new dentists to embrace all this new technology, all this new change?
So I would say first and foremost, you have to develop a mindset that you have to develop the habit of leaving the familiar behind. Okay. That means normalizing the new. You have to become skilled at being curious about exploring the future and exploring change. You see, maybe 20 years ago or even 30 years ago in dentistry, I would see these adoption scales, right? And I think they would go, you would have like the innovators, which are people that first embrace something new in the community. Then you had like the early adopters, then the early majority, the late majority, and finally the laggards or the resistors. Now, I remember a time way back when like computer scheduling and software first came in. A lot of people adopted the software, but they still continued using their appointment book just to make sure that they didn't lose things, right? So in a way, they were resistors. You could get away with that 20 or 30 years ago, but today, the new skill is being able to embrace change and opportunity quickly. It's you basically have to live at least as an early adapter. When things come out, you've got to get your team involved quickly. You want to explore it. You want to go to more conventions. You want to interact more with your sales reps that come into your office. You've got to be a more skilled learner, right? I know I have this one client, he's an oral surgeon, and he told me, Peter, when I graduated from dentistry and I received my license, the license I got was a license to learn. And he says to me, the path to success or the road to success is always under construction. And his whole premise and the reason he's been so successful is he says, when things come out, I embrace them early. I learn about them. I bring the sales reps into our office regularly. I have them do lunch and learns. We don't necessarily purchase or embrace everything, but we're exposed to it. And when we decide that we're going to implement something new, better, or different in our practice, we involve our entire team in that process.
That's really important, is to have the team involved.
Absolutely.
You know, a lot of young dentists, you know, they're associates. So it's not up to them to, you know, purchase AI software for diagnostics or to do online booking on the practice's website. So what advice do you have for associates on how the practice can adopt, you know, new technologies?
So if you're an associate, I'm going to say, because that's a really good question, the key there is you may not be in full control of what's going on in the practice that you work in. However, depending on how you show up in that practice will determine how they see you, how they embrace you, how much they listen to you, how much of a voice you develop and earn over time, and ultimately how inspired they are by your ideas. So I think for new grads or young dentists with under 10 years of experience, it's extremely important not just to show up in a new work environment. Where's my room? Where's my dental assistant? What are my hours? Okay, where's the patient? All right, let's just, you know, flow through that triangle. If you want to be someone that is able to benefit from all the changes and innovations that are happening in the community, you can be an associate that actually brings inspiration and excitement and almost newness to an office, Why? Because you've got fresh eyes.
Yeah.
You're young, you're open, you haven't really developed, any long-term habits. You're willing to explore new things. I always say to dental offices that the very successes and the way you do things, the very successes that got you where you are at any point in time in your career, those successes and habits eventually become the shackles that imprison you from further growth in the future. Young dentists bring a fresh mind, fresh eyes, and a fresh energy to a new work environment. And if they understand that and they take the time to communicate and to share their ideas and to get involved in team meetings and to contribute, they can be a source of inspiration to an office that might otherwise have been stagnating before they got there.
Yeah, I totally agree with you because I recently made a career change. I left my job in public health.
That's exciting.
Yeah, it is.
Yes.
And now I'm working as an associate in private practice.
Congratulations
and thank
on
you.
that.
I have 2 different locations. And I noticed that neither one of them had an intraoral camera, as basic as that.
Wow.
And so I just found a really inexpensive one online and said, hey, do you think we can use this? I'm like, okay, well, it's not that expensive. It's not going to cost us a lot of money. I would love to have an intraoral camera. They were just waiting for that opportunity. They noticed the absence of having that low-end technology. And I even said things like, oh, I looked on the website and I noticed that, we should make some changes to make it easier for the patients to get information. And it was just really small things. And then all of a sudden they're like, hey, do you want to be involved with our weekly leadership meetings?
Nice.
How about I send you a survey? You can send me a list of everything that you think we should improve on.
And the interesting thing is,
now all of a sudden, I'm this low-end associate, just there part-time, and now within a month, I'm up to leadership level.
wow. And they're excited when they hear that. And I think for young dentists, it's very important for them to remember and to understand, right, that the job of a business, right, when you're speaking to practice owners, the job of a business, right? Yes, of course, dentistry for the noble reasons is to touch people's lives and to give them quality of life and to serve them happiness, serve through the medium of dentistry. But at the end of the day, the job of a business purely is to make money, right? How you make money is by getting customers, keeping customers, and growing customers. So I think associates that are going to earn a voice of influence in a modern practice are the ones that are going to also pay more attention to how they can develop relationships with the patient base, how they can inspire the patient base, and how they can inspire the patient base to benefit from all that modern dentistry can do for their specific situation. When a practice owner sees you engaged in deeper forms of communication with your customers, they pay more attention, right, to the things that you need because they believe that you will use those things for the advancement of the business, and there's going to be a return on investment.
Yes.
And as long as there's a return on investment, anything you ask for is worth it because it's going to help the practice. I always say, is it good for the patients? Great. Is it good for the team? Great. Is it good for the business? Great. Let's invest in it because we're going to grow. We're going to enjoy what we do more, and it's worthwhile. And I think, sorry, can I say one more thing?
Yes.
I think practices that focus too much on money as a central expense, right? Those are the ones that aren't going to thrive as much in the future because really technology costs. New innovations costs, research costs, and really the offices that will do the best and serve their communities the best are the ones that develop an investor mindset and they focus their investments on making their environment better so that they can serve their people and their communities better. All right.
Thank you, Peter. And speaking about my career change, the reason why I left that great job in public health was because I was too comfortable.
Really?
I need to feel more fulfilled. I want to be challenged. And so that's
How long
why
were you there?
I was at that location for 13 years, but in
Wow.
public health for 17.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I just realized I was coping, not thriving.
Wow.
So what advice do you have for dentists to have that thriving, happy, fulfilled career, to, to choose the right location to work at, to have a plan, have a career plan of what they want to do?
Okay, so if we were to take 10, let's start with new grads.
Yeah.
Okay, let's say 10 new grads, or it could be 10 people that have 5 years in. Okay, let's go 10 new grads, and we follow those new grads over the next 5 years.
Yeah.
We're going to get 10 completely different levels of happiness, of satisfaction, of clinical skill development, of connection to the community, and quite frankly, of love for what it is that they do, right? It's really important to understand this because I feel, and I always tell dentists, life is a skill and you are athletes, right? And athletes, right? The key component that makes an athlete is that athletes are obsessed with betterment,
Yeah.
right? A constant state, not of fixing problems or improving, no, just a constant state of evolving and expanding your abilities so that you can thrive in what it is that you're doing. I think that that's a really important mindset for a new dentist to have, because it's only under that mindset that you can actually then do step 2. And it's the most important step, which is if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there, right? So the bottom line is they have to be, if you don't make a plan, what's going to happen is your career will happen to you.
Yeah.
But you're going to be like a sailboat in the middle of the ocean, right? That's being bounced around by waves with no real sense of direction.
Yeah.
And I think having a sense of direction is extremely important. Now, I know that most dentists, right, just through their schooling, know and realize, and have read somewhere or heard on videos or whatever, that when you make a plan, right, even if you don't make a plan for implementing that plan,
Yeah.
you start to, in silent, powerful, and unseen ways, align your heart and your thinking with those outcomes. And it makes you subtly more intentional to move in the direction of your interests. So what I tell people is make a plan.
Okay.
Look ahead. Make a plan that's 2 years out and 5 years out. But I think the 2-year out plan is extremely important. And in that plan, you want to think about many different variables that are going to be related to things that are important to you going forward in your career.
So that also includes personal things as well.
Personal.
Okay.
Absolutely. So for instance, that would be, first you might want to ask yourself, okay, let's go with the clinical. What do I love in dentistry? What do I want to do more of? What direction do I want to move? Do I enjoy surgery? Do I enjoy cosmetics? Do I enjoy, preventive, right? You need to develop an interest and a clarity on the type of dentistry that you're interested in. The next thing, I think it's really important when you talk about personal, and this one's huge. I can't tell you how many dentists have told themselves the necessary lie, which is, I will move to this area, or I will take this job in this community or in this geographic location, even though my heart and soul does not want to live there and develop, my lifestyle there. And so a good example of that is, I know a dentist that 20-something years ago, he graduated from dental school in Russia, came here, got his license, and lived in Montreal. Met his girlfriend, and they decided, oh, it's a great opportunity. We're going to buy a practice for really cheap, way north in this place called Red Lake.
Yeah.
Okay? So, Red Lake, Northern Ontario. You have to take 2 planes to get there before you get to the main airport. Okay. Now, there's nothing wrong with there's nothing wrong with practicing in those communities. A lot of people have grown up in those communities and would love to go there. Yeah. But this guy was from Moscow. They lived in Montreal. His girlfriend was raised in Montreal. They, from a happiness standpoint, wanted to be in a larger community, right, that had more to offer based on their interests. Well, what they did is they decided to tell themselves a necessary lie. They bought a practice for cheap. It was a great money maker. They had it for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, a decade. 17 years later, they were still there, and they finally decided, we need to move. Wow. And they relocated. And so I think it's really important to know geographically where you want to practice, where you want to live, and start to look for places of work in those communities. Now, someone might say, well, then I'm limiting my options. Well, no, you're not. Then what you have to do is you have to turn up the volume on the way you sell yourself and the way you present yourself to those practices, so that even if they don't necessarily need you or think they need you at that time, right? They don't want to lose out on having an associate like you, and they may give you an opportunity to grow hours into their practice. And so I think selling yourself and knowing what dental practices are looking for in a good associate is extremely important for placing yourself in environments that you're going to thrive and enjoy.
I like that. I liked what you said first about the athlete, because our friend Necki Jamal.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I love that guy.
So do I.
Necki, shout out.
So he said that he doesn't just think of himself as a dentist. He also thinks of himself as an athlete. So just like athletes have to practice before they're in the game, we have to do that as well, which means continuing education, which means reading journals, which means connecting with other professionals. The other thing is, just like athletes have to sleep well, eat well, train well, we have to do the same thing. And also, like athletes, they go into the game and they're like, this is going to be a win. Like you set your intentions for the day and the attitude.
And didn't Necki say on your podcast, he said, our practice is my stadium.
Yes.
And learning is my gymnasium.
Yes.
Right?
That's fantastic.
Isn't that cool?
I love that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to copy that as well. Shout out to Necki. Thank you.
Shout out, yes.
Now, how about for a brand new dentist? When they are looking for an associateship, they're just taking whatever associate like practice will say yes to them.
Yeah.
But then you're also saying, well, be intentional. Where do you want to work? And that's hard, because a lot of people want to work in urban areas where it's really competitive. So what advice do you have for brand new graduates who are looking for associates? How do they find the right one? Even though a lot are looking to work urban, a lot don't work urban and are willing to go to different places. Yeah. But what I would say is you need to develop the skill of selling yourself. Okay. Now, what's sales? Well, let's look at it like this. Most dentists, the concept of sales was not something they thought of when signing up for dental school. Yeah. Their mindset and mentality is that, I've got this degree, I've got this license, I've earned, my respect, and people should just know. Yeah. Well, the bottom line is, listen, if you took 10 different dentists and you put them in the same treatment room, in the same office, you're going to get 10 completely different levels of effectiveness. 10 completely different results with how connected they are to the team, how connected they are to patients, how inspiring they are to patients, right? How effective they are at connecting with the leadership of the office and developing a voice in their office. So what a young dentist needs to do is start to think about what it is that dental practices are seeking in an associate. Now, I have a client that I was coaching a few years back, and he gave me a call. He's an associate, right? Graduated 3 years prior to calling me, 2 years prior to calling me. And he says to me, I need your help. And I said, well, with what? He says, well, I'm being bullied in the office. I said, well, what do you mean? He says, well, the dental assistant has almost 40 centuries of experience, right? She's been working for 40 centuries with the owner. Yeah. He values her more than he values me. And when I'm going through my learning curve, she puts me down to the dentist to make me look bad. And then I end up making mistakes, not communicating as well, and the whole thing. And he says, can you help me to develop my leadership skills? And this
is what I spent time doing with him. I first helped him to understand that leadership is an extremely important thing that he has to learn so that he can know how to show up in an environment where he shows up with a professional image, right? Your professional image actually oozes through your pores more loudly than the words you speak, right? What you think in your mind and feel in your heart about who you are and your value to the environment is palpable beyond your words. In order to develop an attitude and a personal emotional relationship with your value and who you are, you need to put it on paper. What is my value to a dental practice? And so I had him make that list. And he said, well, I care about people, right? I can inspire patients to be interested in more of what we can do for them. I understand that businesses need to make money, right? I'm going to be a contributing, mindful member of being productive in that environment. I will promote hygiene. Dental offices want dentists that are promoting hygiene because hygiene is the hub of a practice or of GP practice that helps us to maintain a relationship with our patients beyond emergency dentistry or cosmetics, right? They live in hygiene. So when he made an entire list out, then we practice, and him and I practice, okay, so when you go in an interview, how are you going to present yourself? Hi, I'm looking for a place to work. These are my hours that I'm available. You know, this is a school I went to. Or are you going to go in there excited to be a contributor to the growth of their practice, to the culture of their practice, and to helping their practice to thrive? And if you're excited about that, you're going to communicate about I love people, I love dentistry, I love forming close relationships with my dental assistant so that we can thrive together and so that she's happy as an employee. You know, I'm punctual. I know that being on time is extremely important. That's another subject we should talk about, how to stay on time, right? And when you start showing that you're taking the microscope off your need for a job and shining the spotlight on how you can help their practice to evolve and thrive, that's when the magic happens. That's when people, whether they need you or not, they will start looking for ways to integrate you into the environment. And sometimes they might kick somebody out that is not doing that in order to make room for you, but I'm not saying that we should do that.
Yeah, like focus on how you can contribute.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to pretend that I'm the practice owner and you are Peter Barry, DDS. You just graduated from dental school. You've only done like a couple of root canals, a couple of crowns, and you're trying to get a job in my office. So pimp yourself.
So the first thing I would do is and I'm going to speak third person, right? But the first thing I would do is I would ask questions about the office, right? Because otherwise, what you need to do is we need to remember that it's a two-way interview.
Yes.
They're interviewing us, but we're interviewing them, right? And really good dental offices know that the best people are interviewing them as well, right? Yeah, and so it's a mindset. And when I coach practice owners, I remind them of that. If you want a good associate, you have to understand they're interviewing you as well. It's your opportunity to sell yourself to them as well. So the first thing I think as an associate going in for an interview is you have to be curious and interested in the growth of their business and interested in finding out what's going on in their business. So ultimately what you're doing is you're almost shifting the microscope away from them just asking you a series of generic questions, right, to you finding out about their practice. So can you tell me, you know, doctor, how long has your practice been here, right? What is your clientele like? What are you looking for in an associate that will serve your practice well? Have you had associates in the past, right? Which ones do you find work the best for your practice? Wow. Now what they're doing is literally you're guiding them in self-discovery. They're coming to desired conclusions in their own mind, and you're the face that's there, right? Ready to fulfill those openings of what it is that they're expressing. So I think fundamentally is you have to ask more than tell.
Okay.
And focus on the growth of their business more than focusing on the hours I have available. These are my days. I have learned that people will put an ad out that's looking for someone, and they may have an initial interest in set hours, set days, set whatever.
Yes.
But when you present yourself in a special way beyond that shift work interview,
Yes.
they will, their interest in you and their ability to integrate you into the practice will become more flexible. And they'll say, well, maybe, could you come in on Saturdays? Or maybe we can open up, an evening or this morning for you, right? So it's amazing how if you really are passionate, you can find good opportunities, but you need to be interested in their business and you need to know what it is that they're looking for in a good associate.
Oh, that's great. Peter, what is the biggest challenge new dentists have in being successful as an associate?
Okay, so probably the challenge that I'm going to bring up is one that is at the core of human existence. It touches everyone, everywhere, every day of their lives, including in dentistry. I remember, I don't know, you remember a guy named Dr. Paul Homley?
Yes.
Right. So he's, isn't it wonderful when patients say yes, and he talks about communication and chairside leadership and how to interact and collaborate effectively. So I had an office. They went and spent a weekend with Dr. Paul Homley. And this was a real eye-opener for me. Then they learned all this amazing stuff about how to communicate, interact, and collaborate with their patients. They go back to their office, and I'm talking to the dentist. It's 3 young associates. They weren't able to implement a thing. I said, why not? They said, we're too busy being busy. We're running around trying to keep up, in an environment where it's hard for us to slow down and to take the time to really engage with the human, kind of beyond the teeth. And so I've learned and I've realized that anytime someone learns something new, better, or different in the world of dentistry, they need to be able to go back to their practice and apply it during work. Well, to be able to apply it during work, you have to be skilled at staying on time. But I think staying on time is more about managing your time, right? It's more about creating a schedule that works. What a lot of people do is they do what's called heroic scheduling. We need to produce more, or we don't have much time. It's a 30-minute appointment, but we got 20, so the front desk decides to put something in there. The problem with that is that you're going to run chaotically. It's going to be difficult to keep up. And when it's difficult to keep up, you're not communicating with patients. You're not planting seeds about what they can expect from their mouths in the future. You're not celebrating the solution that you've provided them today at the end of the procedure. And you're not really planting seeds that are effective so that they'll want to come back and engage in hygiene. So I always say the difference between too fast and fast enough is shorter than you think, right? Young dentists need to be able to stay on time. Staying on time is a psychology, right? I have learned that the more time you have and that you're given, the more time you will take and need. Every associate needs to remember this and needs to understand that the only way you're going to increase your, I don't want to call it speed. I'll call it, the only way you're going to be able to increase the time it takes for you to skillfully do what you do comes from when you have clear boundaries around how much time you have to do that procedure. And a lot of dentists don't use their time wisely. They spend too much time at the beginning, for instance, doing this or that and not focusing on getting to what they really need to get to. Certain dentists I find at the end of an appointment are not skilled at being able to end the procedure. being able to end the meeting. So I remember this one guy, he's sitting with Mrs. Jones, Granny Smith Apple, and at the end of the procedure, she says, "Can I show you, my photo album of my grandchildren?" Yeah. They don't know how to end those discussions. Yeah. It's really important to be able to give love during the entire appointment, but you have to be able to look at a patient and skillfully let them know, "Mrs. Jones, right, I had a great time with you today. We've taken good care of you. Bring your album the next time. We'll have a look at it at the beginning of the appointment. I have, someone else that I'd like to, dedicate, the time properly in the schedule for." Also, dentists will often try and be the jack of all trades rather than using their assistant more effectively. What does that mean? It means, I remember I have an office in a small community on Lake Huron, that this office was booked months out and was always running behind. And so the dentist would sit there and want to do post-op instructions and explain everything to the patient. And when in a team meeting, when we asked the dentist, "Well, why are you doing the post-op instructions? Why don't you get your assistant to do it?" She said, the dentist, she said, "Well, I want to make sure she hits all the points." So we did an exercise. We said, "Okay, post-op about instructions." And literally, we asked her assistant. Her assistant rattled off everything because she's heard the dentist say it a million times. So the dentist realized, wow, I need to know when to walk out of the room and delegate the next step to my dental assistant. Yeah. So I think staying on time is about booking enough time, first and foremost, right? It's about knowing how to handle late people. How late is too late to be seen is a very important thing to apply in the world of dentistry. It's knowing how to factor in hygiene exams. In other words, if a procedure is going to take 45 minutes and you've got 2 hygiene exams during that hour because you've got 2 hygienists on that day, whereas on other days you might not have any hygienists at all, you have to factor that into your booking. So ultimately what I would say is that staying on time is a skill. It's about scheduling enough time. It's about making smart use of your time. And it's about one last thing. And if I could mention this, because you're a spiritual butterfly, right? And so am I. I think it's really important for us to recognize that the schedule up front needs to be designed the way the treatment rooms need to operate in the back, not vice versa, right? Which means that we have to, so that we can be able to work more mindfully. And I know that there's a big mindful revolution in society. Mindfulness is simply people being able to do their work while focusing on what they're doing, who they're doing it with, what they're doing it for, and being immersed emotionally in all the emotions associated with that activity. And I think for young dentists, it's really important for them to embrace and create a mindful practice where they structure a schedule in a way that's realistic and where they're strategic with their time during their appointment so that they can have time to connect with their patients during that appointment as well.
Wow, Peter, that was so well said. Now,
Thank
time
you.
is not the only challenge for dental practices. It's also a challenge for podcasts because we are out of time. But you were so fantastic. We need you back. I'd love to have you back for a part 2.
It would be my pleasure. And I would love for if any of your audience or young members, whatever, like to have just basically a peer-to-peer chat with me about anything they're experiencing or anything that they would like to achieve or create in their practices. They're more than free to contact me. Am I able to give them my contact?
Yes, please.
So my name is Peter Barry. You can follow me on Instagram. What is it? It's Peter. Oh my God, I'm blanking out.
Just do a search for Peter Barry.
At Peter Barry Coach. There we go. At Peter Barry Coach. My email is peter@practicemastery.com, and you can call me at 568-5456. I'm wishing you happiness, success, and fulfillment in the field of dentistry. And thank you so much, Sanj, for the wonderful things you're doing for all of the new dentists in the community.
Thank you, Peter, and thank you to the audience for listening. Stay tuned for next time.
Sanj.
That was awesome.
Was
That
I
was a
babbling at
win.
the end?
This podcast is sponsored by RDT Dental Laboratory, your full-service dental lab in Toronto. RDT Dental Lab will help you grow your practice through education, predictable restorations, and high attention to your clinical needs and patient experience. Check them out at rdtdentallab.com. Thank you for listening to the New Dentist Study Club podcast. Listen to us on Spotify, watch us on YouTube, share and subscribe, and follow us on Instagram at New Dentist Study Club.